For many Disney Channel fans, the Halloween special of That's So Raven titled Don't Have a Cow, is considered a holiday classic. Most of it comes from the setup of Raven and Chelsea turning into cows after a magic spell gone wrong. Fans were impressed by the makeup team making them appear as human-cow hybrids, as well as the performances of the actresses appear at first frightened but slowly giving in more to their bovine side. While there are a lot of funny moments, many fans also remember it as pretty scary given how frightening it would be to slowly be turning into another animal against your will, and the aforementioned makeup team and performances didn't exactly help. The biggest twists of the episode came in the ending. First up, at the end of the party, after Raven and Chelsea are revealed to be the winners of the costume contest, the camera cuts over to them and shows they have completely transformed into cows. They even got actual Holstein heifers and put wigs on them to make them resemble Raven and Chelsea for added effect. Some saw it coming, especially given how Chelsea ate the page with the reverse spell on it, but it was still so jarring to switch from a couple of girls with cow makeup to full-on 1,000-pound livestock. It got a big laugh from the audience seeing the protagonists as full cows, but it was also kinda disturbing. I'll get back to this part in a second. After this turn of events, it's revealed that the entire episode was one of Raven's visions. This is notable since when Raven has a vision, we usually get the start of her going into a vision and it only lasts for a couple of seconds. But here, we never get the start of her going into it, obviously for the twist ending, but it led many to question if she saw the entire night given it's not usually how they work. Regardless, she's able to stop Chelsea from eating the burger and prevent them from ultimately turning into cows. They brush it off and ultimately never bring up this episode again in the series or Raven's home, and while the "it's all a dream" twist in shows is understandably frustrating, it kind of makes the ending a little darker in retrospect. Raven's visions aren't a dream, they're a premonition. While not all of it comes true and there are events she is ultimately able to prevent such as this, there's still actual possibilities. If Raven didn't have this vision, she and Chelsea would have gone through with the wishing spell, made the same mistake, and ultimately transformed into cows at Alana's party. And that was it. We never see what happens to them afterwards. Now some could argue that the spell was only temporary and maybe they'd become human the next day. Except there isn't anything implying that. Their spells hypnotizing Alana into inviting them to the party and winning the contest came true. Nothing about the setup made it appear that their cow transformations were temporary. While I get they had the vision twist since every episode had to have a vision, I feel like if it was temporary, they would have done something to address this or just have them become human again shortly afterwards. They could have easily had Eddie pull a spell out of the book they glossed over or the parents come by and fix the problem, and they didn't. The only other overlooked possibility is having someone use the wishing spell to turn them back, but no one besides them knows they used it in the first place, and again, they choose not to show it happening. Plus we don't know if there was a limit to how long they could use it for, how many wishes it provided, and if it could reverse any spells caused by it in the first place. Some could also argue that since they can still talk, they could tell Eddie about the situation and then he'd contact Raven's family for help, or that they could leave and go back to Raven's house. But there are a few problems here. I'd imagine trying to navigate San Francisco on four legs for the first time is no easy task. Especially since cows have a very hard time walking downstairs. And while it is Halloween and the party attendees somehow believed these were costumes and not actual cows, though I think that's the spell twisting their minds like it did for Alana earlier, I don't think the spell affects anyone outside of the party. So there's a good chance a San Fran resident would spot them and call animal control. As for talking to Eddie, for one, he was also under the impression they were wearing costumes, and he randomly disappears after they completely transform. Secondly, we're unsure if they're able to. Yes, they are shown to be able to talk for a little bit even when fully transformed, but the spell also makes them act more like cows as the night goes on. When we last see them, they are shown mindlessly mooing standing in the middle of the restaurant. For all we know, that might have been the last time they were able to speak before switching to mooing full-time. If you look earlier in the episode, they at first accidentally mooed whenever they said a word that rhymed with moo.
Okay, we'll take it, it's yours, just move. We are definitely
But later on, they just start doing it out of nowhere like cows would. No trigger words, no concerns about their surroundings. With how fast they become cows both physically and mentally, it may have been the final step considering by that point they were completely transformed physically. Also, can we talk about how messed up this spell is if it had a mind of its own? Not only was transforming them slowly like a method of torture, but it also changed them at the most inopportune times. Chelsea grows a tail the moment she and Raven sit on the bed. When both of them want to grab or grip something, their hands become hooves that exact moment. When Raven wants to point out how weird and gross Chelsea is acting, it makes her start chewing cud. I'm pretty sure if it weren't for Disney Channel censors, the spell would make them slip in a puddle of their own milk or gain a couple of 100 pounds in front of Alana if it could. To top it off, when Raven and Chelsea are fully transformed, not only does the spell take away their clothes, but they are also in halters. I know production-wise this is to control the cows on set, but there's no reason they should be leashed unless the spell was being that much of a dick. It's like the spell was saying get used to these now, I've conjured these for a local farmer I've contacted to set up a cattle truck for you to step in the moment you walk out of this building. Enjoy the rest of your lives eating grass, competing in county fairs, making milk, and flirting with bulls. And while Raven's understandably mad at becoming a fat, smelly barn animal, imagine being Chelsea. Remember how the reason they transformed was because she freaked out at eating a burger and wore an anti-beef pin? If the spell wasn't busy making her act more like a cow, I'd imagine a vegetarian become an animal they protested living conditions for would be utterly horrifying for them. No pun intended. Am I reading too much into this? Of course. But that's what happens when you make your endings so ambiguous and leave them on a cliffhanger like that. Obviously it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the show since Raven immediately prevented this outcome from happening, but the transformation occurring in Vision means there's an alternate timeline on this show where this actually happened. You could easily believe that they found a way to become human after this episode, but you could also argue that they remained cows for the rest of their lives in a Halloween night gone wrong. The "it's just a dream" ending is one of the more frustrating plot twists for movies and television, but here, it makes one of the wackiest episodes of That's So Raven, into one of the darkest.